Our guest on today's show is April Dunford. April is a positioning consultant, entrepreneur, angel investor, and advisor. She has 25 years of experience as an executive in a series of 7 successful tech startups and 3 global tech giants. April has also launched 16 products as an executive and more as a consultant. As a keynote speaker, she addresses topics such as positioning, market strategy, and new product introduction. Thanks for joining us today, April.
Thanks for having me. It's so great to be here.
Perfect. So I do want to just start off and ask you, so what do people know you by now? And how did you get into this whole journey that people, you writing a book, being a speaker, being who you are?
Yeah, what do people know me as now? I think most people know me now as a positioning expert, like mainly as a consultant. I mean, that's my main thing that I do. Although I put out a book this year, and when you put out a book, you got to think a lot about how are you going to market the book. And so one of the main things I did to market the book was a lot of public speaking. So, I think a lot of people know me from speaking at conferences this year because I did so many conferences. But before I became a consultant, that's really only been the last 3-4 years of my career. Before that, I was a repeat VP marketing at a series of tech startups. Like I think I did 7 in total. And people say, wow, 7, why so many? And I'm like, because they kept getting acquired. So I did 7 companies, 6 of those got acquired, which ended up with me working at 5 big companies, and you kind of have to stick around at the big company for a while. And then I'd leave and I go back and do the next one. So that's kind of where I came from. But now is sort of, the consulting phase of my career.
That's amazing. So I wanted to ask you, starting off in terms of your journey and your career, did you go to school for this, like marketing?
Oh, heck no. No.
Or how did you get started in terms of like getting into this groove of 7 entrepreneurial?
Startups? I didn't have much of a career plan. I'll tell you that. I had this idea. When I went to university, I had this idea I was going to go be a doctor. That was my thing. And the only reason I thought that is because I grew up in a really small town, but I had really good marks. Okay. And so, and that's what you do. If you're in a small town, you have really good marks, you go be a doctor. Cause that's like, I gotta say, I don't think I examined that a lot. And then I went to school, and after a couple of years, I applied to med school and I got in, but I kind of had this crisis of like, do I really want to do this? Like, what am I doing? Like, I haven't really thought this through. And I ended up switching into engineering because I like tech. And then, but even then, I got to the end of my tech career, and I was kind of like, I don't actually know what I want to do as a job in tech. I just like tech. And I ended up getting a job at a startup because my friend worked there and she put in a good word for me. And this job required somebody that could, the product I was working on was an SQL database. So you need to be able to write structured query language like SQL. Queries, and you need to be not afraid of public speaking, because there was going to be a lot of like doing demos and doing stuff at trade shows and doing things like this. And so I was like, well, I can do all that. So I got that job. And then fast forward a little bit, the company got acquired. My boss left, and I was kind of last gal standing. So I took over the department, and here's me 2 years out of engineering school. Well, I can't even spell marketing. I don't know anything about marketing, but I had this kind of like, how hard can it be sort of attitude about it. I was like, oh, I'll figure this out. How hard can it be? And then I hustled. Like from that point forward, I was like, I better learn some stuff about this before people realize I don't know what I'm doing and I get fired. And so I self-studied my way into knowing something about marketing, and then I was doing it, and that's a good place to learn. And I had super smart, experienced people on my team because I had this great big team, and I learned a lot from them. And then I kind of decided this is my jam. Like, this is just what I thought it was fun. I thought I was pretty good at it. And so I left there. I went to another startup. I built a little team. We grew really fast, and then we got acquired. And then I stuck around with a big company, and then I left there, and rinse and repeat 7 times, more or less. That's kind of how I ended up where I was. So there wasn't some big plan, man.
That's awesome.
It was just kind of like, hey, this is good. I'll keep doing this.
That's exactly what life is all about, though, right? You never
Yeah, I
know.
don't know how you would plan for such a thing,
Exactly.
right?
And then
Like,
you
how
got to
would you
follow
plan?
what you enjoy doing, right? So if you actually
Yeah,
enjoy where you're at and that whole learning curve of not knowing and being challenged and really figuring
yeah.
things out yourself, I mean, that's what life is all about,
You know
right?
what I had? I had like two things. Like one was I want to do work that I enjoy, but the other one, which I think looking back was probably the better guiding light, was I want to do work that I'm good at.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, in engineering, like I did engineering at University of Waterloo, so it's super competitive and everybody in your class is super smart. And so I always really liked programming and I really liked tech. And you know, if you had to ask me before I started engineering, what did I think I was going to do with tech? I probably would have told you I'm just going to be a programmer. But then I got into engineering and I was like, crap, I'm surrounded by these people that are way better programmers than me. And it's not that I was a bad programmer, but I was like, I don't want to compete with these people for the rest of my life for jobs. They're going to beat me. Like, I'm going to have to find something I'm better than these people at.
Yeah.
And so I think that was, you know, in a way, maybe a good way to think about it. Because, you know, because I, you know, now I'm doing this thing that I, you know, I legitimately feel like I'm awesome at, and I can't think of anybody that's better than doing this stuff than I am. I mean, I'm sure there's people, but I don't know them so good.
Oh, that's the most important thing, right? Um, yeah, and this is the thing about life, right? What life brings to the table, because if you are the average of everyone, I mean, like, how do you step apart, right? How do you differentiate yourself,
Well,
right?
this is actually interesting, right? It's kind of fundamental to positioning, right?
Yeah,
So the whole deal with positioning is trying to figure out where is the space where your offering can win.
yeah,
And you know, just being okay doesn't win you any deals. Like, you got to be better than other folks at something, not for everybody and not at all things, but you got to be better than other folks at something, and that's where you're going to go win, and that's where your positioning should be around. And so yeah, so maybe I've been thinking about positioning since
well, that's
since
amazing.
university or some stuff.
Well,
I
it's
don't
just,
know.
that niche market, knowing exactly what differentiates yourself and just
Yeah,
go at it, right? And know
yeah.
your market. You can't satisfy everyone.
Not going to
Just
satisfy
satisfy your
everyone.
tribe, and that should be good, right?
That's right.
So growing up, did you ever have people kind of like looking up that you looked up to, or kind of pushing along, or mentors? Because for what you've done and achieved over the years, I mean, to do it all yourself, it's very difficult. So, as an entrepreneur or someone that's starting, did you have someone to kind of push you to kind of overachieve and succeed?
You know, I get asked that a lot, and so I've done a lot of thinking about that, because people keep asking me, right? Like, who are your mentors and who helped you out and whatever. And, you know, I, I really struggle to think of anyone that frickin' helped me. Like, I feel like I had to fight
That's
for
right.
everything I got. I had to fight. Like, when I switched into engineering, the Waterloo Engineering told me I couldn't switch because my marks weren't good enough. Do you know what my average was in grade 13?
95, 91.
90, 99 and
Oh
a
my
half. And I was like, my dudes, and I had to fight. And
God.
you know what it was? They have this factor that they rate you, and it has to do with people that come from your high school and go into Waterloo Engineering, and how much does their mark drop?
Mm.
And so, nobody from my school had ever been in. So I was like, so what does that mean? And they're like, oh, well, we automatically subtract 20%. And I
Hmm.
was like, that is the most bullshit thing I've ever heard in my life. And I had to fight, and I had to fight.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted me in that class. And then when I got there, I had to fight to stay in. And I had like professors. I had a professor in second year university that I went in to argue about a mark that I got on a midterm. And I got in there and we had the discussion about the mark and whatever. And he didn't give me any extra marks, but whatever. And so I was about to leave, and he said, you know what? People like you don't deserve to graduate from engineering.
Wow.
And to this day, I don't know what he meant. People like me, I don't know if he meant because I was a woman. I don't know if he meant because
You're standing up.
I was complaining about my mark. I don't know if he meant because I was wearing a leather jacket. Like, I'm like, what does he mean, people like me? But I felt that in engineering. Like, I felt that. Like, nobody wants me here, but you're stuck with me, people. Like, you're just gonna. And then I think about some things. Like, I got a super lucky break. Like I said, my friend helped me get into that first job that I got,
Yeah.
which I would have never got that job if she
Yeah.
didn't put in the word for me. But she was like a year older than I was. Like, I mean, she, I wouldn't call her a mentor.
Yeah.
And then like, it's funny. Like, I don't feel like I do a ton of mentoring
Yeah.
right now
Yeah.
to younger folks that are starting out. And I mentor a lot of founders and I mentor all kinds of people doing stuff. But I'm telling you, nobody took my meeting. like nobody took my meeting. Nobody, like literally nobody ever took my meeting. I reached out to people. I tried to get mentors and I
Wow.
was just rejected. Like, I don't know, like maybe it was just a different time and people weren't so into
Hmm.
giving back or something, back then. Cause like I'm older, right? Maybe back then we didn't do it and now we do. But it's funny how I think back at it and I think, who helped me? And the answer is like, nobody.
Wow.
It
What
sounds
about like,
terrible, right?
how about your parents or even like family friends or
I'm
anyone
telling
that,
you, my parents did not want me to go to university.
oh my
We had a
gosh.
fight about it, and they told me that was the dumbest mistake I ever made in my life. I had to fight to go. I had to pay for my own way. I had to like honestly, like thinking
But,
back on it, nobody wanted this path was not
but,
paved with people saying, "Yeah, April, you can do it." Like it
but
was like
it sounds
everyone's like,
like,
"Don't do this," and I was like, "Yeah, screw you, I'm doing it anyway." Like that, which is maybe I don't know what that says.
but
I
it
mean,
sounds like you actually are like the type that is driven, that is gonna do whatever you put your mind to it, right? Like,
well, that was kind of my attitude, because if I had to listen to anything anybody else had to say to me, I would be still living in small town Ontario somewhere, working at the grocery store or something. I think.
it's because they don't
Honestly,
think
I
big,
think that's
right?
where I might have been. I don't know, but
Maybe, but this is the thing, surrounding yourself with people that actually think alike, right? Like,
yeah,
if they're in a small town and they don't see people that actually are someone greater, that has a big opportunity, that is able to be a CEO or VP, like
yeah,
no one in their circle has ever done it, so they don't know how it's gonna be and how challenging it is. So maybe
yeah.
they were scared as well. But it sounds like if you had that mindset and you were driven and you had this, you know,
Yeah, or maybe I was just a snarky ass. Yeah, no, I don't know. Like,
right?
I don't know. Again, like I had really good marks in high school. And so I really bought this idea that, if you got really good marks, you can do whatever the heck you want. And that was my sort of going in thing.
That's
Like I was
amazing.
like, what do you mean I can't get in? Of course I can get in.
Yeah.
Look at these marks, man. Like,
No,
but
that's amazing.
I don't know. And then and I've kind of kept on that, like, all the way through. People are like, "Oh, you can't do that," and I'm like, "Says who? Like, says who?"
Yeah.
But do I wish it had been easier? Yeah. Like, do I wish I'd had more support? Yeah, I do actually. But I didn't. So and you just kind of deal with that, I guess.
No, that's
I don't think
amazing
my
too.
career's been some totally amazing thing either. Like, I think I got a really good thing that I'm doing right now, and I'm very pleased with the work that I'm doing right now. But I mean, I look back at my career, and there was some great stuff, but there was a lot of crap in there too. It's not like it's not like I went on to totally crush it.
Yeah.
But but all in all, pretty good, really.
So over the years, did you like pivot in any ways, or did you really just focus on the marketing aspect of all tech startup marketing?
Yeah, like it's funny. Like I did this first one, and it was this really techie product. Like it was a database,
Okay.
and so we were marketing a really techie product to really techie people, and then I left there to go do the next one. And that was also, it was like developer tools. So it was also really techie product for really techie people. And then after that one, I ended up getting a job at IBM and again, doing, data management, information management stuff. So techie product, techie people. And after doing a few of those, I thought, maybe I'm getting too nichey into that. Like, I should go do some consumer marketing because that sounds cool. And so then I went and interviewed for all these jobs and I just got denied. Like everywhere I went, everyone's like, you actually know nothing about that. And I was a bit bummed out about that for a while. And then I kind of was like, you know what? I think techie stuff is sort of my jam and I like it. And I think the only reason I was interested in doing consumer stuff is because it sounds good.
Yeah.
But if I kind of, actually examine my own feelings, I'm like, actually, I think I like doing more techie, crunchy stuff. So there was that. And then the second thing is I was like right from the beginning, and maybe because I went to school for engineering and then I kind of landed in marketing, I was really interested in why do some products succeed and some fail in the market, and sometimes the ones that succeed have crap technology, and products with much better technology just don't capture anybody's imagination. People can't figure it out or whatever. And so I was always really interested in that. Like, how do new innovative things actually cross into this realm of successfulness where buyers are like, oh, we got to have that thing, because at the beginning nobody gets it and everyone's like, I don't get it, this is so weird. And so I thought that was a really interesting problem to solve. Like right from my very first job, I was kind of hooked on that. And I would say I'm still working on that. Like that is still in the work that I do now in positioning, and I work only with B2B tech companies. That is exactly the thing that we're working on, is this, how do you take something that's really innovative, really new, nobody's seen it before, and have it be, intuitively obvious how awesome this thing is to potential buyers. Like that feels like, that feels like magic to me. Whenever you figure that out, it feels like magic. And so I'm still really interested in that.
No, that's perfect. I mean, it sounds like you're excited, and that's the most important thing, right? Whatever your passion is, it has to continue exciting you, to drive you to continue pursuing whatever you enjoy doing.
Well,
right?
That's it. Otherwise you'd just be bored.
Boring. Exactly. Exactly. Right. So that's the whole point about running a business.
It's also really hard, right? Like it's also a thing that, it's really hard, and every market is different. Every technology is different. The buyers are all different, and the markets themselves are changing. And there's so many factors that, even when you've done it 1,000 times and you feel like you're really good at it, it's still hard. So it still feels like a challenge every new one you get. So I don't know how I would ever get bored of that, because it's not like you show up and go, oh yeah, I've been there, done that. I don't know how to fix this. Tick, tick, tick. Let's get it done. Okay, now we're done. I move on to the next one. No, they're always hard.
No, that's amazing. So in terms of like challenges that you kind of faced over the years, anything that kind of sticks out over the years, or mistakes that you've made over the years, and how did you overcome them?
Oh God, so many. So many.
I get it.
So many. Like I would say the worst, like the mistakes that I regret the most have more to do with, decisions I made based on poor decision-making criteria. So for example, the very, very first job that I got. So I got this first job in tech and it was really good. And then we got acquired and I worked there for a while. And then I switched to another company and then another company. And at the beginning, because I was kind of techie, I would choose the company I was going to work for based on how much I loved and understood the product, right? So I had this idea like, ooh, that thing's cool. I could market the heck out of that. And so that's what I would base my decision on. And then sometimes, not always, but sometimes you'd get in and you'd realize I am working with literally awful people, like just like awful people. And it doesn't matter how great. And now and yes, the product is really nice and amazing and innovative and whatever. But ultimately, I am an employee that is, and what I am working towards is making really awful people successful. And I regret some of that because there are some people that I have, lent my brain to that later rewards from that I just didn't think they were good people. They were not, they weren't nice people. They were
Not
mean.
genuine,
They were, they were just kind of, they were just not good people, and they were not good to me.
Yeah.
And I think we have a choice. And so, and it's funny, you think I would have got better at that. I got more careful about it, but I didn't get better at it. And I regret that. So, like in the middle of my career, I was like, I'm not working for jerks anymore. I'm going to be more careful about this. But, one of the last companies I ever worked for, I was very careful about the decision. I made the decision very slowly. I spent a lot of time thinking about it and talking to people about it. And I still made a bad decision. I was like, man, I can't believe I'm still doing a bad job of this. And then it was one of those things where, it was just, some people are really good at hiding it for a long amount of time. And then all of a sudden the mask comes off and you're like, oh my gosh, there you are. And now I see what you're all about. So I don't know. So I like my mantra right now in consulting is, I want to do good work with good people. Like that's my thing. Good work, good people. I'm not so worried about the money, and I'm not worried about products. I'm certainly not worried about products, although my expertise, I understand B2B. I don't do consumer stuff because I have no feel for it.
Yeah.
And I have a preference for things that are kind of deep techy, sort of crunchy. But I do lots of things that aren't too. And mainly if I do, it's because I like the people. And so I try to screen really hard because I'm trying to do this, good work, good people thing. But I don't know.
Well, that's the
I
hardest thing.
think it's a skill that I don't have. I don't,
Well,
I don't know. Like filtering out, like I filter pretty hard right now as a consultant because I'm just me, and there's not a lot of people that do what I do. So I get way more interest. A lot more people call me than people I actually accept. So I say no to a lot of people. And a good chunk of those, I say no because I'm a little worried we're not going to get along. Like I'm a little worried that, just personality wise, we're not going to fit. And I don't want to work with any of those. Like I only got so many years left here. Right.
No, and that's the big thing, right? Like you got to enjoy what you do, and the people makes the job so much more. And it is everything, right? If you're spending 8-hour days with people, like you need to make sure that it's enjoyable time, right? People that you actually want to impact and help progress.
Well, here's the other thing I've learned is that some folks want your help, but there's just, for whatever reason, you can't help them. And I learned that the hard way. So some people, they really want your help. They recognize that they want your help. They'll bring you in because they want your help. But there is something that is stopping them from actually receiving your help. And those folks, you can be the greatest consultant in the world or the greatest vice president of marketing in the world, and you can do everything right. And those folks are still going to be unhappy, and it's not your fault, right? And so what would be better is if you just didn't get into it in the first place, because they need something, but you can't do it. and so I try to filter those folks out. Like sometimes I'll get people call me and they'll say, look, my investor told me he had to work with you, but I'm not really sure we have a problem. And I'm like, you know what, dude, if you don't think you have a problem, you don't have a problem. Like, I can't help you. Right? Like, I can't, if you don't think we have a problem, we got nothing to talk about. Sometimes I'll get folks call me and they'll be, they'll say, look, we know we have this issue, like we have a hard time, people don't understand what we do, we have deals that are stuck in the middle of the funnel, I recognize it's a positioning problem, I know we're not stating it clearly, I know we're not doing a good job of this stuff. And but if I scratch at that a little bit and say, so, are there things you've tried to do differently? What's underneath that is, there isn't anything else we can do. This is it. And there are no other options. It can just be this. And again, that's sort of, if you believe that, then I can't help you. Then I can't help you. There's nothing I can do to help you. And so I got to filter some of that stuff out as a consultant, because otherwise, I'll take you as a client and we'll do some work together and it might be good, but you're still not going to be happy.
They're going to be never satisfied. But that's the person themselves, right? Like they're probably just never ever going to be happy doing or working with anyone, right? Any consultant, any employee.
That's it, right? Any consultant, any senior employee.
And how successful have they been over the years, right? So you have to look at track record. You have to look at who they surround themselves with, and everything else, right?
Some folks can be very successful within that, right? And what they end up doing, like particularly founders, like I've worked with a couple of founders where their superpower was surrounding themselves with people that could handle that dynamic. And a lot of times I think that's what it requires, right? It requires, people that you figure out a way to work with, and maybe it's uncomfortable and awful or whatever. For me, but I get to choose whether I want to be that or not. And at this stage of my career, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
When you're in it as a VP or a senior management, you're kind of stuck, right? Like
sometimes you are, sometimes you're really stuck. Like sometimes you're just stuck, and there's nothing you can do. You've got options, you got vested that are vested, you got bills to pay, you got a team that you feel loyal to, you've got lots of things. So there's lots of reasons why you can't leave a job. But yeah.
So how are things going with your consultant gig right now, and how have you enjoyed it so far versus working as the startup in the startup phase?
In-house. It's really different, right? Like, so I think a lot of people think about doing consulting, but without really thinking about the realities of consulting. Like the realities of consulting are, you need an offering. Like you can't, I think everybody that works inside a company thinks, oh, well, I could just do what I was doing inside of the company. I'll just charge by the hour, or I'll charge by the day, and I'll have multiple clients and I'll do the same thing. But it's actually completely different work. Like you need an offering. Your offering there needs to be a starting point and an end point. And not all the work that you do is better done by a consultant. There are only a small number of things where it actually makes sense to bring in an outside person to help. And so, your offering needs to fit within that. And so it took me a long time to figure out what the right offering was, and then figure out really, what I should charge for it and what was fair and who would my target audience be. And I did a bunch of experimentation at the beginning. Now I feel like I really nailed it. Like I've got a very clear, narrow offering. It's not for everybody, but if you're B2B, you're tech, you've got a certain amount of traction, like you need to be in market and a certain amount of traction, but but you're not quite rocket ship to the moon territory yet. And if you show the symptoms of weak positioning, I can help you, and I can do it in a super efficient way that makes tons of sense for you to bring an outsider in, because I'm going to come in with a fresh perspective. We can get it done in a couple of days. We're going to workshop through it, and then your team can take it over from there. And it's a kind of efficient way to really jumpstart a really thorny, ugly problem for a lot of B2B tech companies. So it's great work. Like I love it because I feel like it makes the best use of my skill set. And the companies I work with, I think, are getting, good value, but they're getting it fast. Because if you're a startup, you can't, you don't have months and months to figure this stuff out. You have days. So they're getting big bang for their buck in a really quick period of time, so that they can get unstuck and get on with doing the rest of the stuff they need to do. So I'm really pleased with the work that I'm doing right now, and I would like to do it for the rest of my life.
That's amazing. I mean, at least you
Not the rest of
found
my
something.
life, actually. The rest of my career, because
Yeah,
I'm not
depending
working
on
for the
how
rest of
long
my
you're
life. Yeah.
no, but it's so important, right? Like finding something, knowing who your audience is, knowing who you want to help out, and knowing exactly what kind of niche and position they're in to help them out, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
without knowing all that, like this is marketing, right? Figuring out who your tribe is, figuring out who your audience to that you want
Yeah.
to position and market to, and then putting together an offer, putting together, some
Yeah.
sort of
I don't
plan.
think enough companies say no to customers.
Oh,
I think that's a bit of a superpower to know not just who's a good fit customer, but who's a bad customer, and just say, no, we're not for you. Because trying to force that, like, people are just not going to be happy, and no one's going to be happy. You're not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy. Like, I could close all kinds of bad fit business and make money in the short term, but it would be the wrong thing to do in the long term, and no one would be happy. I'd be unhappy. They'd be unhappy. Everybody would be unhappy.
yeah, I think that's the most important thing as an entrepreneur or business owner. Like halfway through this is my 6th year. So in year 3, I started saying no to a lot of customers. I say no more to any inbound than yes, because they're not an ideal fit, or they
Yeah.
just asking them these questions and knowing what kind of client they're going to be, or what kind of experience they've had with other agencies and other type of clients. Like it's just, I
Yeah.
just feel like it's not gonna work out, right? And if I really want to help people, and I want to help good people, I want to help people that actually want to help other people,
Right.
right? And that's where I want to put more of my effort into it, right? Like I can help horrible people, and they can spend and invest as much money as they want, but really, am I really helping them?
Yeah.
Like they're already bad people, they're horrible people, they don't treat their staff right,
Right.
just all that stuff. Like I don't want to support that. I don't need to, right? I'm in a position that I can
Yeah.
say no, so say no. And I fire customers too, right? Because they drain you, they spend way too much time and
They
resources
drain
on you,
you.
and it's
Bad
not worth
customers
it.
are so expensive.
So
Like,
invested, and it's the stress, it's the sleepless nights, and it's draining on your staff too.
they
And
kill your staff. Like, they're sitting up
it's the
calling support
morale.
every 10 seconds.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
bad fit customers are the worst, the
Yes.
worst.
But
In the
it's
positioning stuff I do, like, part of the beginning of the process is to separate out good fit customers and bad fit customers. Because the point of positioning is, like, you want to look at those good fit customers and say, what do I got to do to get a pipeline full of people that look like this?
yes,
Because if I never had another bad fit client again, I
exactly.
may be good. So you got to look at them and then say, okay, this is what I want. I want to make it clear. This is what I do. And here's the value I can provide for folks like this. And then, we all got bad fit customers. Like, gosh, when I was working in-house, like, every startup I ever worked at, we'd have a handful of clients that we took them on because we were broke.
Yes.
We needed the money. It was a big deal. It seemed
Yeah.
like a good idea at the time. And then we regretted it. It was like, oh gosh, we have to deal with those guys. Oh, we hate them. And
And
they're
then you
such
see
a
their
pain.
email or call, and you're like,
And
oh,
everybody on the team is like, oh, there they are again. I hate
yeah,
these people.
yeah,
Yeah. So those ones, again, sometimes you're desperate and you got to do it because
yeah.
you got to do it. But if you can avoid them, man, in the long term, you'll thank yourself.
And I think early on, you don't know who your ideal fit or tribe or
No, you
audience is,
don't.
right? So
That's
even
right.
as much surveying and as much, market research you do, unless they're paying customers that's been there for a while,
Yeah.
then you kind of know after, I would say, years, right? Like you can't
Yeah.
even know in months. Like you don't know who your tribe is, right? So I
No, you
kind of
don't.
figured out, and I made a lot of mistakes over my years, and I still make mistakes, but I kind of know who's a good fit, and I know through my gut if I really want to help them or not, right? And
Yeah, it's
it,
true that
it,
it takes a while.
it
So,
takes time.
I get lots of startups will call me and they'll say, "Oh, we need your help on positioning or whatever," and then you'll find out well they're not actually in market yet. And
Yeah,
so you're not in market yet. You got to kind of cast the net wide and see what you pull up because you don't know. Like what you have is a theory, right? And the theory is these people will like me for these reasons, but you get the offering out there, you don't always know until you get it out. In fact, you pretty much never know. And then you got to get it out there, see how the market reacts, and then worry about tuning it for that.
Yeah. I think it's very similar to how we run our agency. Like in SEO, it's like, it's a longer term than pushing product out there with different
Right.
offers and different, you know, ways to bring in new clients, right? Like SEO is a long game, and we need to build your authority and trust and expertise and position you as the expert. But if you only have a 6-month period and you're going to run out of cash, like don't look at SEO to be the savior. Right? Like you need to be in it for a long period of time to really reap the benefits, right?
Well, that's a good point about building relationships with clients too, right? Like it's great consultants are good at this, right?
Yeah.
Like they're good at being respectful of everybody, even the ones that aren't good fit, because maybe they come back to you later, they have a different company, they do something and they are a good fit. And it's funny, I put this book out this year.
Yeah.
And everybody's bugging me for an audio book. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'm going to do an audio book. So I thought I'd wait and see if anybody likes the book first. And if they do, then I'll invest in doing an audio book, because it takes time and money and stuff. So I was on Twitter and I thought, I must know lots of people that have done audio books. I'm going to tweet out like, hey, does anybody know anybody? I just want to talk to some people that have done an audio book so I could figure out, how do I do it? Should I go to a studio? Should I narrate it? Should I get someone else to narrate it? And a couple of people mentioned this guy in my network. They said, oh, you should talk to this guy. He's done a couple of audiobooks. He's a super nice, helpful guy. You should go talk to him. And I said, great. And I just thought we could just have a conversation, like people.
Yeah.
And so I sent him an email and said, hey, everybody says I should talk to you. And here's my situation. I don't know anything about audiobooks. I'm trying to figure out audiobooks. And it turns out he has a marketing agency, and he doesn't do audiobooks, but he did his own audiobook, and his agency is more like an advertising agency. And so they do a bunch of the creative stuff or something. And so he just went into sales mode and tried to sell me on doing my audiobook with him. And he's like, well, what's your budget? And all this stuff. And I was like, dude, I just wanted to I don't know what my budget is, because I haven't done my research yet. And people just said, you've done an audiobook. And so what he could have done is had a 20-minute phone conversation with me, or at least just said, hey, what do you want to know?
Ask
and
questions.
Instead, he tried to figure out what my budget was. He told me a bunch of things. He said, look, you need, and a bunch of stuff that was way out of my realm. Like he said, we're going to make custom music for you, and you need a producer. And I'm sitting there going, you're talking a language I don't even understand. No. I don't know what and I don't know, do I need those things? I don't know. And then the crazy thing is we went back and forth on email, because I was thinking, I don't know, maybe the guy's going to propose something to me or something. We went back and forth on email for a couple of days. And then he sent me an email and said, oh, it turns out my team's way too busy and they can't work with you. Okay, thanks, bye. And he fired me. And so here's a guy who's in my network. I hear nothing but good things about him or whatever. And I am never, ever, 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 ever going to recommend that guy to anyone, because now I think like he's tone deaf, right? Like he didn't treat me like a person. No. He treated me like a wallet. Yeah. And the minute he decided he couldn't get anything out of my wallet, it wasn't even worth talking to me about. So the whole thing was just left this terrible feeling. And I thought, and then like all these things, it made me wonder, like, do I do that to people? Like, have I ever had people? And I don't, right? Most of the people that come to me will get on the phone, we get half an hour, and a lot of them, I disqualify them. But if there's some way, like some of them I disqualify because I don't think they have a positioning problem. And I just say, you know what? Like, I don't think you need me. I think you're fine. Some of them I disqualify because I think we're just not going to get along. And I think I'm doing them a favor. And some of them, I tell them what the price is and they can't afford it. And so I'll say, well, look, here's the consolation prize, right? I have a book. Here's a bunch of templates. I can send you a bunch of stuff and you can self-serve this. And here's how. And if you want to have a coffee with me next week to walk through it, we can do that too. Yeah. But, I would never just say, oh, well, here's all the things you need to do. And then, oh, sorry, I'm too busy for you now. Get lost.
So again, I don't know how successful these
is. Oh.
these business owners and entrepreneurs. I mean, this is what I mean
He
by,
seems pretty successful from the outside, but who knows? I
but
mean, who knows?
to actually be a person you want to hang out with or build a relationship with, a business relationship, or even just going for coffee, right? This is what I mean
No,
by
he
like,
decided, this guy decided over email without talking to me or anything else. He just decided I wasn't even worth maintaining a relationship with. It was like, he was just like cross off the list. And then even worse, he forwarded me on to somebody else that he thought might be able to sell me something. And I was like, oh God, like I like
yeah, yeah, without
why?
even knowing exactly what you
Without knowing
want. I mean,
anything, without knowing, like
but
all
this
I
is,
wanted was to pick your brain over coffee, dude, and you could have just said no.
yeah.
Like, no
And,
harm, no foul. Say I'm too busy. Sorry.
but
Like, and if he had to pick my brain over coffee, maybe I did want to buy something off him, but he didn't even give me a chance, man. Like,
yeah, people go into sales mode right away, not knowing
it's the
exactly if they
worst.
are like a good fit or how you can
It's the
help them or what they're
worst.
looking for, right? Like,
The
get to know the
worst.
person, figure out if they're actually wanting to do what you can offer or not, right? And then if there
Yeah.
aren't, then move on, right? It's okay to say, I don't think we offer something in our repertoire or services. So,
Yeah.
versus like string you along and go back and forth. Like, it's a
Well, I
waste
don't
of
know, or
time for
even,
both
or
people, right?
yeah, again, like all I wanted you to say is like, I just want to have a conversation. Like, should I do it in a studio or not do it in a studio? Should I use someone outside to edit or not use someone outside to edit? Like, and instead all I got was your qualification. You were just trying to qualify me
Yeah.
without giving me anything. He's not going to tell me anything. And then when he decided I was disqualified, it was like, well, you get nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, it was such a bummer. Such a bummer. I was
But
like, oh, that kind of
are you
sucks.
still in the search for the audio?
Yeah, well, luckily I got a lot of nice people in my network.
Okay.
So, the nice people, so I've got a handful of phone calls now with people that have done audiobooks that do want to have a conversation with me about how they did it and whatever. And so I'm going to do that over the next few weeks and figure out what my options are. But yeah, no, I'm still working my way through how to do it.
No, that's amazing. And maybe I can ask you about how you started writing your book too, because that's something I wanted to get going on as well.
Yeah, the book was a really interesting journey too. Like like I was saying that I started down this path kind of learning about marketing as a non-marketer, and then this positioning thing really intrigued me, and I was surprised when I first started learning about positioning that we're all in agreement on what positioning is, but nobody seemed to have a methodology for doing it. So if you go to marketing school, which I eventually did, they'll make you read this book by these guys, Reason Trout. It's called Positioning: The Battle for Your Mind. It was written in 1982, and this is still the definitive textbook on positioning. So, and if you read that book, it's great. It does this amazing job of convincing you that positioning is super important, and you're kind of things are going to be hard if you don't get it right. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't tell you how to do it.
Mm.
So there's a bunch of case studies in there, but the underlying idea is if you need to get this done, you call those guys and they're going to do it for you. Well, I was always at little startups and we didn't have any money, so I couldn't call those guys. I could call anybody.
Yeah,
So
just
I
had to
was like,
figure
well, hey, how come nobody knows how to do this? So I eventually worked out my own methodology for doing positioning, and then I started teaching it. So I was, like a part-time mentor with a bunch of different startup incubators and
yes.
accelerators. And so they'd say, hey, you know a lot about this positioning thing. Why don't you come in and teach a course? And then, knowing how to do a thing is one thing, but then figuring out how to teach it is a totally different thing. So then I got into, I got better and better at teaching people how to do it. And then I started doing talks at conferences on it and an occasional workshop, and then switched to consulting where now I'm doing this. And I got the idea for the book in that some folks come to me and they're early stage and they're bootstrappers and they don't have any cash to hire anybody outside. They're not even paying themselves.
Yeah.
And I would be sending them articles and say, oh, I wrote this blog post, you can read this. And
Yeah, yeah.
and I kept thinking, God, if I just had this thing written down, then I could just say, look, here's the book. It costs $7. Just, just read it,
Learn yourself,
and you can self-serve. If you have a question, come ask me. And the same thing was, I kept getting, as my profile started going up, I started getting calls from all over the world. So I get these people from Australia, and they're like, hey, maybe you could help us. And I'm like, well, Australia is pretty far away, man. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, am I going to Europe? But Australia is going to takes me a day to get out there, a day to get back. So again, I thought if I had this in a book, I could just give it to people. So then I decided to write a book, and then, that was a whole journey. I had to figure out what writing a book was all about. And do I need an agent or a publisher, or I don't know, like in the same way I'm doing this thing with the audiobook. That was me like 3 years ago with the print book. It was like, and I got all kinds of advice that, that didn't work for me. I talked to a guy, again, who was 1 degree out of my network, who's kind of a famous author, and he's done a bunch of books. And he's like, look, you have to have an agent, and you have to write a book proposal, and you have to go to a publisher, and because that's how he had written books. And so I never did get an agent, but I did eventually write a proposal and get a meeting with a book publisher. But then I was kind of negotiating a deal with this publisher, and I decided the deal was stupid, and I didn't know why anybody would want to take that deal. And so I decided to do it myself. But I kind of had to get there on my own, and then
figure it out for sure.
And then now I think doing a book with a publisher makes very little sense right now. I'm not sure why anyone would want to do it, to tell you the truth. The publishers don't really do anything for you, and it's very easy to hire companies that can do editing and layout and artwork and all this kind of stuff. And there's lots of companies that do that, and you just have to pay for it. With the publisher, they pay for all that stuff up front, but then they take it off of royalties, a huge royalty off of all your book sales afterwards. And for me, I was never worried about the marketing piece of it, because that's kind of my jam. So I knew I could market it. And again, the book publishers gave me no confidence that they knew anything about marketing. Like they literally knew nothing. Like the questions they asked me, I was like, oh man, you guys don't know anything. So I knew they weren't going to market it. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do all the marketing, I should get all the money too. So then I'm happy to pay up front for somebody else to do the work. So that's what I ended up doing. That's amazing. And so I did that for the print / ebook. And I'll do the same thing for the audiobook. I've been approached by a couple of companies that are audiobook publishers, and they're like, oh, we'll do it all for you. We'll get a narrator, we'll do a thing, we'll create the book, and we take a royalty, just like the book publishers do. But the royalty is basically like all of it. And I said, well, do you pay me anything? And they're like, yeah, we pay you $1,000. I'm like, are you kidding me? No. Why would anyone take this deal? Like, the deals are terrible. The deals are straight up legitimate terrible. So I can figure out how to do it. And so, I'm in the middle of that. I think, I don't have the right equipment. I don't have the right space. I think I can spend a little money to do it properly in a studio. Yep. And then I just need to figure out what other help I need on it.
Oh, you could always hire people and then just do it, just do it, right? Just like publishing a book, just hire people.
I fully intend to do that. Just hire people and whatever. I'm going to narrate it myself though, because I've been doing a lot of public speaking with this book, and I think I'm the best person to narrate it. I don't think anyone could do it better than me. Like, I'm sure they could pronounce it better than me and be better at the microphone than me, and all that, professional narrator stuff. But I think that the stories are mine, and I know how to tell them better than anyone else. So I think I want to edit my own thing, but I don't do audio, stuff. Like, I don't want to be in charge of that, man, because I don't know what I'm doing.
No, that makes sense. So another question I had regarding, when you left the corporate world to kind of do your own consulting, coaching, were you doing it already, like on the side, or were you did you do a full stop and then start it with all the experience? Because as an entrepreneur, a startup company, a person, I mean, we always talk about like doing a side hustle and making sure that it kind of replaces your full-time income before
Yeah.
taking it on full-time, because you never know, right? Like life happens, you have a family, you have shelter, you got other expenses, right? Don't
Yeah.
take on that risk before doing it fully.
Yeah. If you look at when I first officially formed my consulting business, that was like 10 years ago, but
Mm.
I was never serious about consulting. So what I did was I left the startup, or I was at the startup. The startup would get acquired. I'd stay for a couple of years or however long I was contractually obligated to stick around. And then I would leave. And then I have to go find a new startup. Well, you after I was fairly senior, I got real picky about, who the new startup was I was going to join. And I was worried about joining the wrong one. So I started the consulting business mainly to just basically do a try and buy with a handful of startups. And so I'd say, look, why don't I just come in and I'll work a day a week? And,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll do like 3 or 4 of you. And then with the idea being, we'll do this for a few months and then I'm going to fall in love with one of these companies and then I'm going to go join them full time. So I had a consulting business, but it wasn't consulting. It was,
Gotcha.
it was kind of me dipping a toe in a bunch of companies. So the first few rounds of consulting, I was doing that. Now, the interesting thing about that is you do get some experience with not being an employee, doing some stuff. Like, it's not like that didn't teach me anything about consulting. It actually taught me a lot. And then, I joined a company and then again, I'd leave and then I'd go back to this consulting thing. And so I did that a few times before I made the big switch to say, nope, I'm just doing consulting. And then this is my second go at, proper consulting. So the one before that, I had an idea for an offering, and it was pretty good. And I was doing it by myself. And I had the idea that the offering would be better if I brought a business partner in. Plus, I think consulting is a little lonely. So I thought, oh, it'd be good if I had somebody else. Like, it'd be good to like do it with somebody else. And so I brought a business partner in, but it just didn't work out. And she wasn't very committed to the business. And she kind of, she was just dipping a toe in consulting and thought maybe she wanted to go back to being an employee. And so anyway, so that one didn't work out. And I ended up joining one of my clients because that's what I always did. And I wasn't sure how I was going to run this thing without the partner. So I went and did that one. And that company I left after a little over a year, and it wasn't an awesome experience for me, that one. And after that one, I was like, no, this time I'm going to commit. I'm going to do this properly. Let's get serious about this, April. And since then, it's been really, really good.
That's it.
But there was certainly a number of false starts along the way. Like, I wasn't coming at it from zero. And the other thing was that at that point, like, I'm fairly late in my career. So it's very different from, when I was younger and I had debts and I was broke, I'm late stage in my career. And so, I got money in the bank. It's not a big deal for me if I spend 4 to 6 months monkeying around and I don't have a full list of clients and I'm not making a lot of money. So I had the luxury of doing that just because, I'm not doing this in my 20s. I'm doing this as an old lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it easier too, that I could make the leap without really having to worry about, okay, hurry up and get some clients, because otherwise I'm not gonna be able to make rent.
Yeah. So just a last couple questions I want to go ask you. So knowing what you know from all these years of experience, what continues to drive you and what are you pursuing currently and what are you gonna pursue? Because if you think about all these years and experience that you've kind of garnished over the years, bringing that to the table to now becoming more of a consultant, a speaker, doing these coaching sessions. I mean, where do you see yourself going from here? Like, I
Yeah,
know you mentioned this is going to be until you retire.
yeah.
Um,
part of the reason why I love what I'm doing so much is because I don't want it to be anything else.
hmm,
Like I get lots of people that'll come and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, how are you going to scale that? Like, are you going to hire some employees?" And I'm like, I don't want to scale it. I actually love it little. I'm cool with it being little. People say, "Oh, you could do courses and you could do this and maybe you could do it." And I'm like, or I could just do what I'm doing right now, which is actually awesome.
yeah.
And is great. Like, why do I want to muck with a good thing? Like, I think we're so trained across our career. Like, it took me a while to get to this spot. Like, we're so trained to be like, what's the next thing? And what's the
Yes.
next thing? And how are we going to make this better? And how's it going to be better? And I am actually really consciously trying to just enjoy good work, good people. And it's great. And part of the reason it's great is because I'm not trying to turn it into something it isn't. And I'm not like, ooh, this would be good, but if I had 5 employees and we could do a thing and then I could sell it and like, I'm not trying to do any of that. I'm
So
trying
it's
to do
yeah.
like good work, good people. Now, it's not like I don't care about, you know, I need to get paid fair money, and I'm not charging nothing for this thing. And I'll tell you, this year I got a lot more famous and the rates went up. but but I'm still but I'm still not interested in like how do I turn it into a great big thing? Like,
Yeah.
I think if I did do that, I'd wreck the amazing thing that I have right now.
So it sounds like you're in a really good situation because you're no longer chasing, right?
I'm not
And this
chasing
is
it.
what happens when you're younger. You're always thinking, what's the next thing I got to get into? What's the new position? What's the
I was
next
always looking for
job,
promotion.
promotion?
I had early in my career, I had this thing like, you know what I want to be? I want to be VP marketing, Fortune 500 company. That was my thing, right?
Yeah,
VP
yeah.
marketing, Fortune 500. I want to be that. And then I got this fancy job at IBM and I didn't quite make VP, but I was on the path to making VP. If I just stuck around and another 3 years, eventually they would give me that promotion. And so I got there and I was kind of like, okay, now what?
That's it.
And I did, yeah. And I wasn't any happier. I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, the work wasn't, the most disappointing thing was that the work was not better. In fact, I was kind of more miserable than I'd ever been in my life. And I was like, geez, I always thought this was my goal. Now I'm here and I'm like, man, the wrong goal.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of take a step back. And so it made me realize, one, that the startups are where my heart is. Like, I like these smaller companies are more
Incubator.
fun for me. Um, and it really got me thinking about what kind of work do I want to do? It's not
Yeah.
just the title and the money, it's the kind of work that I want to do and the people I want to do it with. And so I had to kind of take a step back and reorient around that. And then again, after having a few shots at consulting and bringing in a partner and thinking about having employees and other things, it kind of made me realize, no, it's good work, good people. That's it. Go work with people. We're just going to do the thing that I love. I'm going to charge fair money for that. I'm going to work with companies that I think are excellent, people that I think are excellent. And I just want to do that for another, I don't know, handful of years until I decide maybe I'm just going to retire and not do that anymore. Like, I don't know. Like, I think at some point you have to kind of know what your enough is
Is
and
enough.
say,
Exactly.
this is actually perfect. This
Yeah.
doesn't get any better than this. This is perfect.
Well,
I'll
you
just
become
take
self-aware.
this.
You're self-aware of where you're at, right? And you're living present. And that's so
Yeah.
important, right? Because
Yeah, that's it.
people keep chasing, and for what reason? To buy stuff, to be more popular, chasing more likes, shares,
And I don't want,
whatever it is,
I'm
right?
self-aware of that too. Like, I do not want to be famous. Like, I see people that are more famous than, and like, they're kind of famous in marketing
Yeah, yeah.
circles, and they've got hassles that I don't have, and I don't have any burning need to do that. Like, I am famous. This is as known as I ever want to be. Like, this
Yeah.
is it. It's a high watermark. In fact, this year, because I put the book out and I'm doing a lot of speaking, I feel a little exposed. I'd like to dial that down a little bit, to
Yeah.
tell you the truth, and go back to my corner and be like, you don't know me and you don't need to know me until you got this positioning thing. And then when you do, you can come find me and that's fine.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. Like even myself, I'm not a very strong social media person, right? Like I've never been chasing or on there just to show people what's going on. I just do my thing. I just help people that need it. I reach out and help
Yeah.
professionals that need SEO, and that's it, right? And I don't need to tell everyone what, even Mark, I don't need that, right? The glamour and glitz and whatever, right? It's just do good work for good people,
Yeah.
right?
Good work, good people. That's it.
And the last question I had, I know it's kind of a little bit longer than anticipated. I wanted to ask you, aside from now your consulting business and the coaching stuff, what are some of the other pillars that really are very important to you today? Because as you kind of was working to move up in your career and your corporate ladder, you know, is it community now, being mentor, being
Yeah.
spending more time with family, taking care of yourself, right? Because during those grinding years in startup, I'm sure you put in crazy hours and not really taking care of yourself, right? Like,
Yeah, well, I'm certainly I'm trying to be careful about not traveling too much. This year is the exception, right? So this year I had this book come out and I definitely traveled too much, but I do not want to do that next year. And I kind of considered it putting a bit of a deposit into a bank that the next couple of years, hopefully I make a withdrawal from and I don't have to travel so much because I did a lot this year. So there's that. I am interested in doing like, again, at this stage, you get to do some other stuff. Like I sit on a couple of boards right
yeah,
now, and board work is interesting to me. It's different. And I think I'm learning a bit about, what does a good board member look like? And so that's been kind of fun for me. And so I've done a little bit of that. And then, you're in startups. Everybody, when you get old, everybody assumes you're going to be an investor. And I don't really know what being a good investor is. Honestly, I look at a lot of folks that I know that do investments and I feel like they're just guessing. And so I'm just guessing too. But some of the companies that I work with that, if I'm working with them and they happen to be raising around when they're doing it and I like them and I believe in what they're doing, I'll do an investment too. So then that gets me to in a spot where I get to explore, like, what's that like being an angel investor and how can I be useful as an angel investor and how would that work? But all those things feel like kind of professional side
yeah,
things. Like, they're things that are sort of around that I do a bit of. And then this year has been an interesting one for me. I never wrote a book before, so I wrote a book, and so I got to learn all about that. Soon I'm going to do an audiobook. Never did that. Well, I'll get to learn about that. And then doing so many conferences and public speaking, so I worked a bit on that as a skill for me. Like, I've always done a certain amount of public speaking, but I never did like 40 talks in a year, which is a lot. And so I'm on bigger stages than I ever were before. And there's different skills. So that's been fun to explore. Like, I think I'm a much better public speaker than I was 2 years ago. But again, it's like a side thing. Do I want to become professional motivational speaker? Oh no.
not Tony Robbins aspirations.
No way, man. That is not my jam. And I love it. Like, I gotta say, I get kind of a kick of standing on stage, and especially you got to speech that's rocking.
Yeah,
You feel the love,
yeah.
but to do that and not be a practitioner,
Mm.
I would feel like a clown, and I don't want to be a clown.
No, that's makes a lot of sense. But it
Yeah.
seems like you're constantly doing something different, which is exciting and challenging because it's something that is new and it's hard to figure out, right? So it always excites you and you're curious.
Yeah, like you usually got like, and this is what marketing's all about, right? There's always a new channel. There's always a new tactic. Like next year, maybe I'm going to build a course because everybody's asking me, oh, how come you don't have an online course? And I'm like, I should do that just to see what it's like to build an online course. Never built an online course. Oh yeah, next year maybe I do an online course, but I do it just for fun, not
Yeah.
because I think I need to do it or anything else.
Exactly.
I could easily not do that. I do it just because it'd be fun to muck around with the platform, fun to muck around with marketing that. In the same way, I didn't have to write a book, but it is kind of fun to write a book. Kind
Yeah.
of a pain in the ass too, but
But that's what life is about, right? Like
right.
all the things that I look at what you've currently done the last couple of years. Like last year, I just started this podcast. It's been a lot of fun just
Yeah, right. Like, and
talking,
you
and
get to, yeah,
you
and you learn
interact
about,
with me.
yeah, you learn about how to do an interview and how to do
Exactly.
podcasts and how you promote that and how do you get an audience and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Like, it's fun.
And then the live events, I mean, just putting it on and practicing it and public speaking, all that could be a new skill set that you've never had before. So
Yeah.
you take it on as, I'm not going to get business out of it, but it's more of a challenge that you want to self-improve, right?
Yeah.
So it's great to hear. So I know we talked about a ton of things here. So how can some of the people get a hold of yourself, April?
Well, so I got a website and it's aprildunford.com. I'm in the middle of a big website refresh right now. So, take pity on the state of my website, but I'm there. The book is called Obviously Awesome, and you can find it on Amazon or anywhere you buy books online. And then I don't do an awful lot on social media, although I'm fairly active on Twitter. I think that's the sort of the biggest social media thing I do. Like, I'm trying hard to get into other ones. Like when things come up, like I'm a bad Instagrammer. Like I have an Instagram account and like once in a while I'll think about something and go, oh, I should post something on Instagram. But it's like always like 3 days after I did it. like I gave this speech in Romania and the stage was really cool looking and somebody took this really cool picture of me in Romania, but I totally forgot to put it on Instagram. Like 3 days later, I'm like, hey, here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest thing, like sticking to mediums that you're comfortable with and you're consistent on, right? So whatever you feel comfortable with,
I guess so,
and
yeah.
you're consistent, just stick with that and people will.
I'm really looking forward to blogging again. I mean, I sort of had to give up blogging for the last couple of years because all my writing time was focused on writing this book.
Yes.
And then this year has been just promotion. So next year I'm hoping to go back to blogging because I got some stuff to say.
Well, you're learning, right?
Oh,
Over the
it's
last couple
pent
of years,
up, man.
right?
I got some stuff I want to write about, but I haven't been able to carve out any time to write in the last year and a half, really. So, yeah, next year I'm hoping to get back to that.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, April, for being on our show. Hopefully you had fun.
Yeah,
and
I
we'll
did.
definitely get
Thanks for
together
having me.
because you're local. You're here in Toronto.
I
as well.
know, we're in Toronto.
So
you're up north though, and I'm downtown. Someone's got to sit in traffic.
well, we can always meet midtown. It's not a big deal.
That's right. We can midtown. That's true. The happy medium. There's still traffic, man.
There is. It's crazy. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully you had fun. And for sure, we'll be in touch.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.